Welcome to POS313, History of Political Thoughts, from Plato to Mill, Study Session 1, Definition, Kinds, Sources, and Effects of Environment on Political. Good day. Welcome to POS313, History of Political Thoughts, from Plato to Mill, Study Session 1, Definition, Kinds, Sources, and Effects of Environment on Political Thoughts. Introduction. The term political thought is oftentimes used synonymously with political philosophy. In fact, political thought is a part of political philosophy, but for now, we shall concern ourselves with political thoughts. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to define and use correctly some of the key words printed in bold. Explain how the environment impinges on political thoughts. Explain 2 kinds of political thoughts you know. And lastly, identify 5 sources of political thoughts. Concept of political thoughts. Before delving into the political thoughts of major political writers from the era of Plato down to Mill, it will be pertinent to elucidate the concept of political thoughts and to explain how the milieux shaped the thoughts of the major political writers, as well as the kinds and sources of political thoughts. Man in society is confronted by a wealth of problems. He's confronted with the problem of forming a state for the adequate protection of lives and properties, and the provision of the wills of the state to enhance the good life or engender the greatest happiness of the greatest number for the citizenry. He's also confronted with the problem of identifying and adopting the best form of government, and he's confronted with the problem of peace, justice, freedom, stability, etc. Plato was one of the most famous philosophers of ancient Greece. He was the first to use the term philosophy, which means love of knowledge. Born around 428 BC, Plato investigated a wide range of topics. Chief among his ideas was the theory of forms, which proposed that objects in the physical world merely resemble perfect forms in the ideal world, and that only these perfect forms can be the object of true knowledge. The goal of the philosopher, according to Plato, is to know the perfect forms and to instruct others in that knowledge. All of these problems made man start thinking of how to find adequate and appropriate solutions to his political problems. The solutions that were thought and put forward by man to solve his political problems in society became what are referred to as political thoughts. The thinking put forward by man on how to attain a better political society is also political thoughts. Hence, Sabin, G.H., and Thorson, T.L., 1973, defined political theory as man's attempts to consciously understand and solve the problems of his group life and organization. They also viewed political thoughts as anything thinking about politics or relevant to politics. This seems to be a generic position. Hence, they narrowed their definition of political thought to the disciplined investigation of political problems. Although political thought is not as systematized a body of knowledge as political theory, and there is a tendency to use both terms interchangeably. They are based on deductions partly from logic and partly from sensual perceptions of the world, of the author's society and age. Such knowledge is limited by both its social environment and by limitations in development of science. From the foregoing, one can safely state that political thought is the disciplined investigation of political problems in the society, with the aim at arriving at positive and worthwhile ideas, which, if implemented, could free the society from its political predicament. Activity 1.1. You are given 5 minutes. Study paragraph 2 and 3 in our content, then give 2 reasons for the development of political thoughts. From paragraph 3, how did Sabin, G.H., and Thorson, T.L., 1973, give a definition of political thoughts? ITQ1. Give definition of the term political thoughts. A. It refers to those ideas that aim at effecting reforms and changes in the political system. B. Theory by politicians who feel that they are benefiting from the existing political system. C. Writings of political philosophers. And option D. It is a theory that is responsible for the English Revolution of the 17th century. The correct answer is A. It is not B because critical political thought is not the theory by those cheated by the political system. Neither is it C because it is just the writing of political philosophers. And it is not D because D is not the only reason for the English Revolution in the 17th century. Understanding the effects of environment on political and social thoughts. What we think, say, or even know are most times related to our social milieu. Every social thought therefore reflects a specific social environment that needs to be understood in its generality, if not in detail. If we are to understand both the thoughts and its relevance or value to our contemporary society. Secondly, we need to know the specific personal experiences which color the thought of our philosophers because they constitute the inner spring from which the inspiration flows. Such personal experiences leave impressions on the mind, and traces of them can be deduced no matter how cleverly the writer suppresses them. They are often betrayed by the words our philosopher uses, the things he says, how he says them, his area of emphasis, and even by what he fails to say. This fact, which is true of every writer and philosopher, must serve as guide to the reader. We must not only read through the text, but also in between the lines if we are to unravel the secrets of our philosopher's mind and personality. This is why we must read not only the text, but also study the biography and background of each philosopher. Kinds of political thoughts. Broadly speaking, we have two types of political thoughts, namely the conservative political thoughts and the critical political thoughts. Conservative political thoughts. The conservative political thoughts refers to those ideas that prefer the existing values. The concept political thoughts refers to those ideas that prefer the existing values, styles, and structures that are strongly opposed to great or sudden social change. Theories of this nature are usually created by those in power who feel that they are benefiting from the existing political system. Such theories are often supported by the political class. The issue here is that those in power and their clients are afraid of losing their grip on power and would never allow any ideas capable of creating chaos and confusion in the political state. Hence, they frown at revolutionary proponents of such philosophies. They love peace, order, and stability, which guarantee their place in power. Resistance to the powers that be is not only seen as a sin, but a crime of monumental proportion, and is viewed with every degree of seriousness by the officials of the state. An example of conservative political idea is when politicians and political scientists continue to call for and support military rule, despite its parasitic role in government. Such theorists mostly write out of personal interest. They also view changing conditions with emotions ranging from regret to alarm. Critical political thoughts. Critical political thoughts refers to those ideas that aim at effecting reforms and changes in the political system. They fancy wide sweeping schemes of political reorganization or the creation of new political system. Some of its advocates are gradualists who would choose legal channels to achieve their aims, while others are radicals who love immediate and radical methods and strategies. Critical theories emanated from political intelligence of man in the society. Critical theories are held by those who are not in power and do not benefit from the political system. Such people are not happy and prosperous under such existing regime, and they hope to better their condition by changing such theories that are always constructive. Such theories have always been forbidden, repelled, and suppressed by officials of the state, except in highly enlightened democratic states of the Western world. An instance of critical political idea in Nigeria is when people like Gani Fawemi of blessed memory vociferously condemn military regimes in the country. This theory is responsible for the English Revolution of the 17th century and the French and American revolutions of the 18th century. It is interesting to note that when a critical theory is generally accepted and becomes successful in practice, it tends to become conservative theory. Sources of our knowledge of political thoughts. The knowledge of political thought of the past is gained from a variety of sources. 1. Writings of political philosophers. Political philosophers who have attempted to systematically put down their thoughts in print provide the main source of our knowledge of political theory. This involves celebrated political philosophers like Plato to the present ones. 2. Writings and speeches of men who occupy official positions in government. This source reveals an appreciable degree of information concerning the theory of the state. Although such materials are often hidden from the public, at times they are unintentionally made known and they constitute our source of political philosophy. 3. Official documents of states. By this we mean written constitutions, treaties, diplomatic correspondence, statute and ordinances, charters, state papers, departmental reports, which constitute a great source of political thought. Even though they do not always correspond to actual practices, they remain a valuable source. 4. Public opinion. The global democratization in contemporary world has given people more say and control of government. Hence, through the instrumentality of public opinion, the people have been able to exert very powerful influence on their government. Hence, the prevailing public opinion in a state gives a cue of the subsequent political philosophy to be adopted. And lastly, literature. This deals directly or indirectly with political life and problems, and they include poetry, essay, drama, and fiction. They give the true picture of the political thoughts of a period because of their less self-conscious and less partisan nature. Conservative political thoughts. The conservative political thoughts refers to those ideas that prefer the existing values, styles, and structures, and things that are strongly opposed to great or sudden social change. Theories of this nature are usually created by those in power who feel that they are benefiting from the existing political system. Such theories are often supported by the political class. Critical political thoughts. Critical political thoughts refers to those ideas that aim at effecting reforms and changes in the political system. The fancy wide sweeping schemes of political reorganization or the creation of new political system. Some of its advocates are gradualists who will choose legal channels to achieve their aims, while others are radicals who love immediate and radical methods and strategies. Summary. In this session, you have learned that political thought is a disciplined investigation of political problems in the society, with the aim at arriving at positive and worthwhile ideas, which, if implemented, could free the society from its political predicaments. Confronted by mass or confused problems like forming a state for the adequate protection of life and property, and the provision of the wills of the state to enhance the good life or engender the greatest happiness of the greatest number for the citizenry. Political thought is confronted by a mass of confused problems, like forming a state for the adequate protection of lives and property, and the provision of the wills of the state to enhance the good life or engender the greatest happiness of the greatest number for the citizenry. These problems made man to start thinking of how to find adequate and appropriate solutions to his political problems. Again, we need to know that the specific personal experiences which color the thoughts of our philosophers, because they constitute the inner spring from which the inspiration flows. We also stated that there are two kinds of political thoughts, which are the conservative and critical political thoughts. End of study session 1. Thank you for listening.